Welcome, my dear students. I am Khujistan Oril Liza, lecturer in English, Anandabhan College, Mymensingh. This class is honored for third year. Our honor subject is English. Today's topic is linguistics, and I am going to teach you today the psycholinguistics, a part of psycholinguistics. Actually, this is from chapter 7. So, linguistics, psycholinguistics, chapter 7, and I am going to teach you the acculturation model. So, listen outcome. Learners will be able to say about the acculturation model. They can explain its definition, and they can explain about the characteristics of the acculturation model. So, what is the acculturation model? At first, the definition: the acculturation in its wider sense can be defined as a learning process in which individuals adopt attitudes, values and behaviors from another culture. So, if we adopt the behaviors, values and attitudes from another culture, not from my culture, from another culture, and that is called the acculturation model. So, this model is developed by Schumann. Is based on the how social and psychological factors can be facilitate L2 acquisition. L2, that means second language acquisition. So, here Schumann wants to say us that if we want to learn the foreign language or the second language, how this can be facilitated through social and psychological factors. So, as acculturation is the social and psychological factors which are believed to be important in the process of SLA, that means second language acquisition in natural contexts. So, Schumann 1986 claims that acculturation or integration with target language group brings the learners into contact with real speakers, that means target language speakers, and thereby the ultimate verbal interactions with those speakers facilitate the process of language acquisition. That means if we talk constantly with the target language group, and that means target language speakers, that will help our speaking. That will help our knowledge about second language, and also they can help it will help us for just our fluency. So, according to Schumann 1978, social distance can also influence the process of second language acquisition. Social distance refers to the learners as a member of social group in contact with another social group whose members speak a different language. So, he enlists the following social factors that can reduce the social distance. So, the factors, social factors that reduces social distance, that means social dominance, assimilation, preservation, adaptation, enclosure, cohesiveness and size, congruence, attitude and psychological distance. So, from the first, if I say about social dominance, so what is social dominance? If the second language learning group is politically, culturally and technically or economically dominant to our subordinate to the target language group, social contact between two groups will tend not to be the sufficient for optimal target language acquisition. That means, if on the other hand, if they are nearly equal in status, there will be the more contact between the two groups, thus their contact with the target language community will enhance the acquisition of the target language. Which this means? That means, if the target language group is superior or inferior, the contact will not be the sufficient level. So, if we are equal, in that case the contact will be at a sufficient level, and this will facilitate our second language acquisition. And that means, if I give you an example from your real life, you will not feel comfort to communicate with your senior or junior members, but in other case you will feel easy to contact who is your friend or your equal level. In that case, your communication will be fluent, and that will help your just learning second language. So, if you are equal, that will facilitate your learning. If you are not equal, superior or inferior, that will not facilitate your learning of second language. So, that is called social dominance. So, again, the assimilation, preservation and adaptation. The best condition for L2 acquisition is obtained when the L2 groups wants to assimilate into the TL group. If you try to assimilate with the target language group, that will help your learning in the superior level. The second best condition occurs when the L2 group wants to adapt the culture. If I take a child in the foreign country, he or she will learn very quickly and assimilate with the culture of the foreign language. but if I take you at the age of 10 or 12, that will also help you to adapt the culture. That is not like assimilation, but that will help to adapt the culture, because he or she cannot just what cannot what forget her or his past culture. He or she cannot totally forget his or her past culture, because he or she already is acquainted with one culture, or his or her own culture from the 10 or 12 years. So he or she also have a positive view about the new culture, but and he will try to adapt the new culture, but cannot forget totally his previous culture. For that case, he can adapt the culture positively, and that will also help him or her to learn the target language. So however, the less favorable and the mostly the bad condition for L2 acquisition occurs if the L2 group wishes to remain separated linguistically and culturally from the TL group, which we try to do in our country. Now you and I, all of us, we are trying to learn the second language or the English language without culturally acquainted with that culture, because we are linguistically and culturally separate from that target language group. Just because every time or all the day we are just speaking in Bangla, and we are trying to learn English. So we are linguistically separated and culturally separated, because we don't do anything as them. We have separate culture, and we are just doing like our culture. So we cannot just culturally closed with that English culture. So what is called enclosure? Enclosure, that means attachment. The more that L2 groups share social institutions of target language group like schools, churches, workplaces, clubs and others, the more favorable the conditions will be for the L2 acquisition. That means if we share our schools with the English language or the second language groups, their schools, their churches, their workplaces, their clubs, that will help our speaking. I mean that we will get the opportunity to talk with them in more time. For that reason, that will help our help our speaking. So that is called closure or attachment. I mean, the more we will be attached with that culture, the more we will learn L2 or the second language. So next point is cohesiveness and size. It means that if the L2 groups are small and the less united, the possibility of contact with the TL group increase, which is surely favorable for L2 acquisition. I mean, if we go in the foreign countries with a large group, in that case we will communicate with ourselves. We will not communicate with the outsiders whom are the target language groups. So if we go with one or two people or three people, this will help us to communicate with others, because we have less time with them, and if we have less intimacy, that will also help us to communicate with the others. So congruence. What is congruence? The more similar the culture of the two groups, the more likely there will be the social contact, and thus the language acquisition. So in this Indian subcontinent, if we go to India, that will help us to learn Hindi is too quickly, rather than if we go to Russia, because our culture is not similar to Russia, but our culture is similar to India. Attitude. The more positive the views of L2 group toward the target language group, the more favorable will be the conditions for L2. If we have positive attitude to the culture of the L2 group, that will help us to learn the language very quickly. But if we have negative view, that will just create a bar in front of us to say about to learn this second language. So psychological distance. In psychological distance, the last part, there are two parts, that there are two types, that is language shock and culture shock. If we have language shock, that will be harmful for our learning, and if we have culture shock, that will also help have a bar in front of our learning. So if the learners become puzzled to adopt new cultural patterns, so we should not have psychological distance. If we want to learn very quickly, we need to have a positive view about the target language culture, and that will also help our learning. So this is the social factors that reduces the social distance, and that this will help us to learn second language very quickly. This is the social and psychological factors. Now the evolution of acculturation model. Acculturation model by Schumann has brought about the most practical linguistic situations of which the immigrants are exposed to. So his model points out some valid reasons which may affect the process of second language acquisition. However, it is received limited support from the SLA researchers, as Faraday believes that the acculturation model focuses on the most important factors involved in SLA. However, there remains some unanswered questions with the model. So, another eminent linguist, Ellis, believes that Schumann's theory received limited empirical support as it has in indirect relation to SLA. He also mentions that acculturation is a group phenomena, while language acquisition is an individual phenomena in SLA. That means we are talking about the people who are going to the foreign country and they will learn the language, but all of us, we are not have the opportunity, and all of us we are not interested to go to the foreign country to learn the language. So just this acculturation model will help the people who are interested to go there and who are just who have the ability to go there to learn the language. So Schumann 1978 also states that the early stages of SLA are characterized by the same processes involved in the formation of pidgin language. So he maintains that if the social and psychological distance is a great, then acculturation is impeded and the learners does not progress beyond the early stages of language acquisition, that is pidginization. So in conclusion, we can say that acculturation model may not be taken as a complete learning theory. However, it has brought out some social aspects of language acquisition, thus contributed to second language acquisition and research. So this is all about acculturation model. Acculturation model is helpful for us, and there are many parts. I mean, these social factors are very much important for learning second language. This will help us, but these are the social and psychological factors actually, and this is a model about second language acquisition, and this acculturation model is discussed by Schumann. So this is an important model. You should learn this model for your personal help also and for your examination. I think these points are important for your short and brief question. So you should know this, I mean, have a clear idea about the points of social factors. So this is all for today, my dear. Thank you all.